So we are reading 14 Lessons in Yogi Philosophy. Oops, I didn't mean to ask you to unmute, Domenica. Today we're on the 13th lesson, Spiritual Cause and Effect. Life is the constant accumulation of knowledge, the storing up of the result of experiences. The law of cause and effect is in constant operation, and we reap what we sow, not as a matter of punishment, but as the effect following the cause. Theology teaches us that we are punished for our sins, but the higher knowledge shows us that we are punished by our mistakes instead of for them. The child who touches the hot stove is punished by reason of the act itself, not by some higher power for having sinned. Sin is largely a matter of ignorance and mistake. Those who have reached the higher plane of spiritual knowledge have borne upon them such a convincing knowledge of the folly and unwisdom of certain acts and thoughts that it becomes almost impossible for them to commit them. Such persons do not fear there is some superior being waiting. Such persons do not fear there is some superior being waiting to strike them to earth with a mighty club for doing things, simply because that intelligence has laid down an apparently arbitrary law forbidding the commission of the act. On the contrary, they know that the higher intelligence are possessed of nothing but intense love for all living creatures, and are willing and ready to always help them, so far as it is possible under the workings of the law. But such persons recognize the folly of the act and therefore refrain from committing it. In fact, they have lost the desire to commit it. It is almost exactly parallel to the example of the child in the stove. A child who wants to touch the stove will do so as soon as he finds an opportunity, notwithstanding the commands of the parent and in spite of the threatened punishment. But let that child once experience the pain of the burn and recognize that there is a close connection between a hot stove and a burnt finger, and it will keep away from the stove. The loving parent would like to protect its child from the results of its own follies, but the child nature insists upon learning things by experience, and the parent is unable to prevent it. In fact, the child who is too closely watched and restrained usually breaks out later in life and learns certain things by itself. All that the parent is able to do is surround the child with the ordinary safeguards and to give it the benefit of his wisdom, a portion of which the child will store away and then trust to the law of life to work out the result. And so the human soul is constantly applying the test of experience to all phases of life, passing from one incarnation to another, constantly learning new lessons and gaining new wisdom. Sooner or later, it finds out how hurtful certain courses of actions are, discovers the folly of certain actions and ways of living, and like the burnt child, avoids those things in the future. All of us know that certain things are no temptation to us, for we have learned the lesson at some time in some past life and do not need to relearn it, while other things tempt us sorely, and we suffer much pain by reason thereof. Of what use would all this pain and sorrow be if this one life were all? But we carry the benefit of our experience into another life and avoid the pain there. We may look around us and wonder why certain of our acquaintances cannot see the folly of certain forms of action when it is so plain to us. But we forget that we have passed through just the same stage of experience that they are now undergoing, and how outlived the desire and ignorance. We do not realize that in future lives, these people will be free from this folly and pain, for they will have learned the lesson by experience, just as we have. It is hard for us to fully realize that we are what we are just by the result of our experiences. Let us take one single life as an example. You think that you would like to eliminate from your life some painful experience, some disgraceful episode, some mortifying circumstances, But have you ever stopped to think that if it were possible to eradicate these things, you would, of necessity, be forced to part with the experience and knowledge that has come to you from these occurrences? Would you be willing to part with the knowledge and experience that has come to you in the way mentioned? Would you be willing to go back to the state of inexperience and ignorance in which you were before that the thing happened? Why? If you were to go back to the old state, you would be extremely likely to commit the same folly over again. How many of us would be willing to completely wipe out the experiences which have come to us? We are perfectly willing to forget the occurrence, but we know that we have the resulting experience built into our character, and we would not be willing to part with it, for it would be taking away a portion of our mental structure. If we were to part with experience gained through pain, we would first part with one bit of ourselves and then with another, until at last we would have nothing left except the mental shell of our former self. But you may say, of what use are the experiences gained in former lives if we do not remember them? They are lost to us. But they are not lost to you. They are built into your mental structure, and nothing can ever take them away from you. They are yours forever. Your character is made up not only of your experiences in this particular life, but also of the result of your experiences in many other lives and stages of existence. You are what you are today by reason of these accumulated experiences, the experiences of the past lives and of the present one. You remember some of the things in the present life which have built up your character, but many others equally important in the present life you have forgotten, but the result stays with you, having been woven into your mental being. And though you may remember but little or nothing of your past lives, the experiences gained in them continue with you now and forever. It is these past experiences which give you predispositions in certain directions, which make it very difficult for you to do certain things and easy to do others, which cause you to instinctively recognize certain things as unwise or wrong, and to cause you to turn your back upon them as follies. They give you your tastes and inclinations and make some ways seem better than others to you. Nothing is lost in life, and all the experiences of the past contribute to your well-being in the present. All of your troubles and pains of the present will bear fruit in the future. We do not always learn a lesson at one trial, and we are sent back to our task over and over again until we have accomplished it. But not the slightest effort is ever lost, and if we have failed at the task in the past, it is easier for us to accomplish it today. As American writer Mr. Barry Benson in the Century magazine of May 1894 gives us a beautiful illustration of one of the features of the workings of the law of spiritual evolution. We reprint it herewith. A little boy went to school. He was very little. All that he knew, he had drawn in with his mother's milk. His teacher, who was God, placed him in the lowest class and gave him these lessons to learn. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not do no hurt to any living thing. Thou shalt not steal. So the man did not kill, but he was cruel and he stole. And at the end of the day, when his beard was gray, when the night was come, his teacher, who was God, said, Thou hast learned not to kill, but the other lessons thou hast not learned. Come back tomorrow. On the morrow, he came back, a little boy. And his teacher, who was God, put him in a class a little higher and gave him these lessons to learn. Thou shalt do no hurt to any living being, any living thing. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not cheat. So the man did no hurt to any living thing, but he stole and he cheated. And at the end of the day, when his beard was gray, when the night was come, his teacher, who was God, said, Thou hast learned to be merciful, but the other lessons thou hast not learned. Come back tomorrow. Again on the morrow he came back, a little boy, and his teacher, who was God, put him in a class yet a little higher and gave him these lessons to learn. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not cheat, thou shalt not covet. So the man did not steal, but he cheated and he coveted. And at the end of the day, when his beard was gray, when the night was come, his teacher, who was God, said, Thou hast learned not to steal, but the other lessons thou hast not learned. Come back, my child, tomorrow. This is what I have read in the faces of men and women, in the book of the world, and in the scrolls of the heaven, which is written with stars. The great lesson to be learned by every soul is the truth of the oneness of all. The knowledge carries with it all the rest. It causes one to follow the precept of the Son of Mary, who said, And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. And thou shalt love the neighbor as thyself. When man grows into a consciousness of the truth that all is one, that when one loves God, he is loving the whole thing, that his neighbor is indeed himself, then he has but a few more classes to pass through before he passes into the high school of spiritual knowledge. This conviction of oneness of all carries with it certain rules of action, of divine ethics, which transcend all written or spoken human laws. The fatherhood of God and brotherhood of man become a reality rather than a mere repetition of meaningless words. And this great lesson must be learned by all, and all are learning it by degrees. All this is the aim of the present stage of spiritual evolution: to know God as he is, to know your relationship with others, to know what we are. There are greater schools, colleges, and universities of spiritual knowledge beyond us. But these truths are the lessons taught in the grades in which we are present, or in which we are at present. And all this pain and trouble and sorrow and work has been but to teach us these truths. But the truth once gained is seen to be well worth even the great price paid for it. If you ask the yogis what is one's duty toward God, meaning God in the grandest conception of him, they will answer, love him, and the rest will be made clear to you. And to know him is to love him, therefore learn to know him. And if you ask them what is one's duty toward his fellow men, they will answer simply, be kind, and you will be all the rest. These two precepts, if followed, will enable one to live the perfect life. They are simple, but they contain all that is worth knowing concerning one's relations with the infinite power and with one's fellow men. All the rest is froth and sediment, the worthless rubbish which has accumulated around the divine flame of the truth. We mention them in this place because they sum up the idea of consciousness, which all the race is striving hard to acquire. If you are able to make them a part of yourself, you will have made great progress on the path, will have passed the great examination. I'm going to pause there.
Was nice.
Yeah, that was just so beautiful.
Yeah.
I shared this in my yoga class last night because I'm like, what can I bring to the students without overwhelming them? Because I also found out last night, right before I was teaching, that Eric's sister-in-law, so Eric's brother's wife, her very good friend's brother-in-law died in a motorcycle accident, leaving behind almost like a daughter going into kindergarten and a 3-year-old. And so it was just like, what else are you gonna give me, universe? I'm supposed to be on vacation. and even though like I didn't know these people, I just still felt the sadness of the accident. But something I learned for Harrison at Harrison's funeral, because they did a Catholic mass for him on Tuesday, and the priest just did a phenomenal job. And I usually don't like when when people say that, because I'm not Catholic, they're always like, oh, the priest did such a good job. And I'm always like rolling my eyes at the back of my head, like, oh, but he really did. He made it very neutral. And he reminded us that the most important thing in these moments in life is to just show up for each other. Like, we just have to be there. And it tells us this in our yoga Bible, our sutras. Sutra 112 tells us we just keep practicing, we just keep showing up, and not just the asana, not the physical practice, but we just keep practice meditation and you being present to help control the mental modifications, the monkey mind. And we practice it with non-attachment. So we show up and we don't get attached to what we're doing. So if we can't sit still for 20 minutes, then we just accept it for what it is that day. Like, we all talked about this yesterday. Like, I feel like we were all a little fidgety during our meditation, but we just kept showing up. And what I said to the students last night is, like, we had 8 students in class, and it was so beautiful. Like, you guys can all practice yoga at home. You didn't have to come here. You can all log in virtually. There's thousands of free offerings now. You don't have to join through Rev's website, but you all show up for each other. We can all do yoga at home. And I think a lot of us say, like, oh, it's too hard to practice yoga at home. But really what we're doing is we're showing, and I was like, you're showing up for me too, because I love to teach yoga. So I get to teach you all yoga. You're showing up for yourselves. And I felt like that's what we just read. Like, we have to, like, it's just so simple. We just have to be kind to each other and know this higher being, which we learned in the Bhagavad Gita. And I was even thinking of the universe unicorn yesterday. Like, what the heck, universe unicorn? What the heck is going on?
Yeah, I like the simplicity of what they said.
Yeah. And I love the example of the little kid. Not that I have one, but it's like, how many times you have to tell the little kid not to put his hand on the stove or whatever it is you're like, how many times you got to tell them? We got to tell them as many times as like, we got to apply that to our own lives. Like, how many times I got to learn this already?
It's simple, but it's really deep.
Oh,
My car, like, why are you thinking? It's simple, but it's deep. Like, the way that the story is, I was laughing because I grew up in a Catholic church, and of course, well, I grew up on a Catholic island. If you weren't Catholic, you came from the moon. But we all grew up with the 10 Commandments, which are great, but we never, at least the way I grew up, right? I'm not saying all Catholics are like that, and I don't want to sound like I'm trying to bash the church, but we never dug deep. It was just, you learned you don't kill, but we never dug into, you can kill verbally. So then in my 30s, I went to a Christian church and they dug a little deeper where I went. And then from there, I came to yoga teacher training and we dug into ahimsa. And I was like, wow, they're all the same thing. Like, it's the same. It's two different religions. And then I came to yoga.
What's Hemsa?
Ahimsa.
Oh.
Not to harm.
Gotcha.
Non-harming. And you're gonna be digging into that one. And it like when you start peeling through the layers and like really getting deep, and you're like, oh, there's so much to you shall not kill, and you shall not cheat, and you shall not steal. Like, but yeah, that story was like, I was laughing because I went through all that. so far in this lifetime. I'm sure I have a lot more to go through.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I just love these lessons because even like for me, like, oh, I lost my sister almost 20 years ago now. I think we're on like 17 or 18 years, and like I just can't believe it. But also on the other hand, I'm so grateful for the experience because one, I would not have wanted anyone else to be in my shoes and have to suffer through that tragedy. And I'm so grateful she chose me to be her sister. But 15 years ago, I wasn't like this. I was angry and mad that this happened to me. And I'm like, nothing happened to me. This was her path. Like she was sick. And it took me so long to learn that. But now that I know it, and I know that I have this experience, I'm able to show up for others in their hardest moments because I know what it's like. And when we pair up with people that know what it's like a relief. It's like we're not alone. And it's great that so many people come and want to support you, but sometimes those people go away. Like we show up for others, but we're not there always. And it's the people that are there always that, and it doesn't have to be always in every situation. Like you may have those always people for work, and you may have those always people for family, and you may have those always people for whatever. You start building your own personal family, your own personal network, so that you know when you're about to collapse and fall, you know who to turn to catch you. Those people that show up in your lives. And so I was encouraging the students even last night, like think about those moments for you. Like who are those people in your life and where have you shown up for others? Because we think that, oh, we don't want to step up, we don't know what to do. Like we walk on eggshells when other people are suffering. And I'm like, we got to stop doing that. We got to just go and just sit. We don't have to say anything. We have to know we're going to make mistakes. We're going to say the wrong things. We're going to make people cry. But that's all okay. We just have to go and sit next to that person and just be there for them. It's so simple.
Pam, that just happened literally like yesterday to me. The woman who rescues the kittens that and like all the kittens that we fostered and are still fostering come from this one person. She's also a Kundalini teacher, so I've taken a few of her classes. So I've gotten like somewhat close to her. And I just found out yesterday that her son died from cardiac arrest.
Oh,
He's definitely younger than me, he was probably in his 30s. And I was like, oh, I'm going to reach out. The first thing I was told, no, just wait. I'm like, why? What am I supposed to wait for?
yeah.
So anyway, I sent a text and she was very grateful, but it's like, yeah, that's what we're like used to. Wait, why?
Yeah. People did, and I appreciated Harrison's father spoke at the wake, and he said, you know, we want to hear stories of Harrison. We don't want him to be forgotten. This is people's biggest fear when tragedy or when anyone passes. They don't want this soul to be forgotten. And they're never forgotten, but people are afraid to bring them up. And like he's like, don't be afraid to make us cry. And it's not that you're making them cry, it's just a situation. And this happened so much to me when my sister died. Like, I was like, why is nobody talking about her? Like, I miss her. Like, what? Are we not allowed to talk about her anymore? But people were telling me, like, well, I think about her all the time. And I think of these stories, but I don't want to tell you because I don't want to make you cry. And I'm like, I'd rather shed a few tears than not hear the story. And there are some times when I don't cry. And there are some times when you're going to say something and I'm going to get hysterical. But it has nothing to do with you. I'm not gonna be mad at you for sharing it. And he was like, bring on all the stories. And I love that so much. So I'm trying to break the stigma.
That allows for healing to take place.
Oh, 100%. And we have to cry. Like we have to cry. And sometimes we can't, or we're holding it in. And sometimes something will release it, and it is tremendous healing. All right, let's do some breath work and meditate unless somebody else has something to share.
All good.
Okay. And it's a hard world out there, but we got to keep showing up. We got to keep doing this practice. And as much as I was like, oh, I just want to cancel this whole week and just hide, I was like, nope, I got to get back into my routine. This helps me. All right, so I'll take a few breaths in through the nose and out through the nose. And take our right hand over to our face, close the right nostril with the thumb, inhale through the left. Close the left, exhale right, inhale right. Close right, exhale left. Inhale left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. Inhale left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. Inhale left. Close left, exhale right. Inhale right. Close right, exhale left. You can continue on a few more rounds or settle into your meditation. I'm setting the timer and you can set your own timer if you need to drop early. Have a good day and weekend, and I will see you all on Monday. Bringing hands to your heart center. Namaste.
Thanks,